Hello, so in today's episode, we're talking to Thomas McCormack. He's a personal and professional development coach. And we're going to talk about listening and how he sees the importance of listening for all of us in our lives and in our work. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on it afterwards. Welcome to the Tilted Podcast. Okay. Hey, Thomas, how are you?
I am only mighty, Sheila. How are you keeping?
Good. So I invited you here today to talk a little bit for the Tilted Podcast around something that you're feeling really passionate about and that's really current for you at the moment. So I think it's listening. Is it listening?
It's absolutely listening.
Okay.
I'm probably most passionate about right now. I have been for quite a while.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about where that's coming from, what that means when you say listening, because I'm sure everybody's like, oh, listening as in effective listening. But tell us a little bit about where you're coming from on it.
I guess for me, before I started the coaching course, I just had this general understanding of listening, which was like, someone's talking to you, you listen. Someone's talking to you, talk back. And then I done the coaching course, and then just even during the coaching course, because of my listening, just a lot of my relationships got a lot better because I was able to listen properly to what people were saying, not listening to reply. Even at home, if there was something up with somebody, you could sit down and talk and just let them listen. And I just learned, and I guess just over the last 2 years, even talking to so many people and having the ability to listen, sometimes listening is all they need. When you're actually able to listen and not try to interrupt they said something about a party at the weekend or someone in the scene, and you're jumping in with the story you have in your head. So all of a sudden you're jumping in, but you're actually completely interrupting their flow. So you're not listening whatsoever. It's just a story for a story for a story for a story. And everyone leaves and everyone feels great because like, oh, I got my story in there and someone listened to me. But when you're properly listening, I've just found it to be like incredible. Or and probably also at the same time, because of my understanding of listening now and how it can really help people. Talking is great, but having someone on the other side to listen is even more empowering. I guess I really notice when I'm talking to someone now and when they don't know how to listen, that they're cutting across, or you can tell you said something, you can almost see their eyes, their head, something's buzzing in their head. They're not even listening to the rest of the words. They're just word listening, and then they can't wait to just throw in their story. And there's nothing wrong with it, because a lot of us are like that. But when you've got someone sitting down in front of you and they actually know how to listen, it's mad. It's like there's I don't want to go too spiritual here, but you feel like there's a deeper, like you just feel like there's a deeper connection, or like people, well, when I met a guy a few weeks ago. He'd come to me for coaching, and I'd met him initially, him and his mom at college initially, and at the end of it, he just mentioned about the listening. He was like, you always had the listening piece, whether you realized it or not. Because like, I told my mom I was coming to see you, and she said that even though it was 7 or 8 years ago, that she remembered you.
Okay.
Because you were able to listen. And I was like nothing to do with me, but anyone, I can, you run into people who can listen and you remember them straight away. She's like, well, they're actually interesting. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I went off on an awful rant there.
No, that's great. I was practicing my listening. What do you think I suppose that's really interesting, the conversational piece, right? So I get in a coaching context or a client context that listening is like key, because you got to hear what's not being said. But in a conversation, you're at the pub, you're out for coffee, you're out for dinner, right? How do you know that? How do you do the listening part and the engaging in the conversation, rather than just being the, maybe faltering into, because I have a lot of therapists and coaches listen to this, and I know that they can easily fall into that relationship with their friends where they've practiced the listening, so they use that skill, but they're not necessarily engaging. Do you get what I mean?
Oh, believe me. Oh, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I know. Someone in my family anyway at one stage, and I went back to mom, and they're like, yeah, you used to call Thomas and he talked back to you, but these days you just feel he's listening all the time. I'd gone too extreme in one way, and I definitely noticed that for a while. It was like almost too extreme for the listening part. But now I'm much more balanced, as in, I know to listen and I know to engage, and like when you're out with your friends, they're not looking for coaching. Like, they're looking for a conversation. They're looking for you to be a friend or a brother or whatever your relationship with them is, and just listening and letting them finish in sentences.
Okay.
Small thing. I'm like, oh, well, I actually think this, yeah, there's definitely a difference, but listening just to understand what they're saying and giving an opinion back.
Okay.
I think if that answers your question. Like, I
Yeah,
know there's a
no,
huge difference. I just don't know how to verbalize.
no, I think that makes sense. I suppose it's just something I notice. Either those who have nothing to do with listening are able to just keep talking and thinking of the replies. And then those who are recently trained at listening, I tend to find go the other way, and it becomes bland to be in conversation because there's a lack of them in the conversation. And I suppose what you're saying is a little bit like listening till they finish the sentence, or and then giving your feedback. I think that sometimes that's where we might miss out on it in conversations, because sometimes there isn't, especially in a big group or depending on your family of origin or where you're coming from, there isn't always the space for you to be heard if you're not speaking quicker, or you're not getting on it, or you're not replying instantly. So I think that's quite a simple tip, isn't it, really? But it would be really effective that you actually listen out to what people are saying, to understand it, and then to reply.
Yeah. Oh, it's just, you don't look to try and cut across them. Let them finish their sentences. Give them a second or two. Maybe they want to say something else. Keep going about their passion for Mayo football, or whatever it is.
No, nobody has passion for Mayo football, Thomas.
You'd be surprised. There'll be about 100,000 of them in Croke Park this weekend. Yeah, it's to be honest, I actually haven't thought through it properly. There's definitely a difference, or just even in a group, just being able to listen and ask proper questions and talk back about what they're actually interested in, or whatever the topic of conversation is. But it is very true. Like, especially for a lot of the people on this are coaches and consultants. For the start, I went so deep into the listening part that I almost became a silent partner. I was like Casper. Like, I was like a ghost. I was there. I was listening, and yeah, it was all part of the journey. Almost too extreme, and like people would say it to you, which is great. It was great that people would say it to you.
Yeah.
I'm your friend. Like, stop listening so much, or whatever it is, or going so deep. But I'm just a deep person. That's who I am, I guess.
Yeah. So for anyone who doesn't have an issue with the whole effective listening piece because they haven't been trained in it, or this is their first time or even considering listening as a thing, what are the benefits to that? What are the benefits to actually sitting there and listening to people? What do you see that it changes in relationships?
You can, I guess when you're sometimes a great example, actually, a very simple example is, say if you're out and you're talking to girls. For me, when I'm out or I'm talking to girls, you can have a conversation with them and they don't feel you're just trying to impress them or whatever. You're actually just having a real conversation. And you have
Okay, so you're saying it's a dating tip.
Well, to be fair, yeah, it probably is a dating tip. Especially there's a YouTube video, anyone could look it up, it's called The Nail in the Head. And it's a girl who's talking and there's a nail in her head, and the guy just wants to, hey, look, there's blood nail in your head, take it out. She just wants to talk about it. Like, so if someone wants to tell you what day, you listen to their day and you're asking about it, just show interest. It's like, on listening, there's listening. On the other side of it's curiosity. Be genuinely curious about other people, and it's when it's natural and you're genuinely curious, it's really easy. It's a lot easier to build rapport or to build a relationship. You genuinely care about what they're talking about. You're not just trying to, in relation to a girl, you're not just trying to bring them home or get married in 3 months' time. It's, you're genuinely just that person in that moment in time. You're not thinking about 10 minutes earlier or 10 minutes later. It's there, being present.
Okay.
There's so much more to it, I guess, but yeah, just simple things like that. Or you meet someone for example, actually, a great example is I was at the Ring of Kerry last year, and I met this lovely fella called Rue, and we were just on the bikes chatting, and we were I don't even know how long the journey was, but both of us were genuinely curious about each other, and we were asking each other questions, and both of us were listening. And we got to the end of that part of the journey, and everyone's like, geez, that must have been the toughest part so far. And me and Rue were kind of like, geez, but that we didn't obviously feel what everyone else felt, because we were just enjoying the journey, because both of us knew to listen and talk back without interrupting, and it wasn't about my agenda was more important than his, or there was no agenda. So just, yeah, I guess I feel it's enhanced a lot of my relationships, big time, even at home and with my friends, and with a friend in America, and we call each other all the time because he knows I listen to help and listen to be a friend. It's just so much nicer when you've people who can listen. Whereas I almost, when you're going to a group sometimes, or even 2 or 3 people, and they're kind of shouting over each other, or yeah, and for me that's chaos. I'm like, okay, time to get out of here. Maybe to the extreme. But anyway, sorry, there's another rant for you.
No, that's good. That's good.
Thank you for listening.
practicing. Because when we first said about this, I suppose I'm very active when I'm working, and like I'm very opinionated as a person. So one of the things when you said listening, I was like, that's going to be really, really important, because I don't think you can ever have that balance right. Like I think it's a constant balancing act between speaking enough and holding the space enough, personally and professionally. But you've named a couple of things. You've named like rapport. It's really good for rapport. You've named something like, without naming it, but around the connection, that actually something happens when we're genuinely listening rather than pushing some kind of power dynamic of being heard, like that agenda kind of happening. And then there's something about, you said the presence, being actually present. There's this big movement around mindfulness, and a lot of it I think is about separating yourself from people. A lot of it is like meditating on your own, or mindful coloring, or mindful walks, and all of those are like fine. But there's something about being able to be present in connection with other people. And I think listening as a tool is probably key for that, and that curiosity, not the fake curiosity that we see sometimes at networking meetings, but actually that real curiosity, like, I really want to know what you're doing, or who you are, what you're about, and maybe not what your job is, but maybe what you care about and what you're passionate about. And I think that we miss that a lot because we're so busy impressing or getting our point across or trying to be seen and heard, that we don't necessarily actually be present for the connection to the other person. I think that's a massive issue. Actually, there's a massive amount of loneliness, and I wonder how much of that could be resolved very simply by connections being a bit more quality based, using listening.
Well, I think you've hit the bloody nail on the head. I read Johann Hari's book, The Lost Connections.
Okay, yeah.
And a lot of it is around the disconnect, and how we're the most connected society ever through social media or whatever, but we don't know how to listen properly, talk properly, hold conversations without, there's silence for 10 seconds. Okay, well, let's just look at my Instagram. Or a prime example was, I was meeting with a friend of mine, Alison, must have been a year and a half ago at this stage, in Nando's out in Liffey Valley, I think it was, or I don't know, one of those shopping centres. And like, we were just conscious to keep our phones in the pockets, like the phones weren't on the table, we were just talking. And then I looked around at one point and I was like, wow. I was like, Alice, look around, what do you notice? And she looked around. Everyone else in the restaurant was full. Everyone else was on their phones. There was no one communicating or talking. There was no one.
Oh my God.
And I just thought it was mad. Or even a good example of what you're saying, if a lot of us, to build rapport better, be completely present, and be genuinely curious about the other person. Like, I've been on buses and walks, or I just like striking up random conversations with people.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, I just enjoy it. Or even baristas and stuff. And I was in getting a health check a couple of weeks ago, and it was a Friday, and I asked the lady just behind the counter, Monaghan accent, lovely, she's getting married in a few weeks, as it turned out. I was like, hey, how has your week been? And she looked up as if I'd asked her something deeply personal, or something that no one's ever asked her before. And she was like, would you believe you're the first person to ask me that this week, besides the people that work with me? And I was like, wow. But I think it's because I wasn't like, how was your week? I was like, how was your week? Like, I genuinely want to know, how was your week? And then she's like, to be honest, and she was like so lovely. Like, she's such a lovely, she's just a lovely personality. I think at one stage she thought I was going to run out of pain, so run out without pain. So she came over and just asked me nicely. I was like, no, not at all. I'll be over there in 2 minutes. And and she just said, to be honest, it's actually been a tough week, but I'm getting there. And she was getting those Paul or Doll of Prague or something to have under a tree, so that it's sunny on the day of her wedding or something. It was I'd never heard it before, so it was interesting. But or if you're in like the barista is another one. When you ask a barista when it's in a quiet coffee shop, how was your day? Many customers? And some people really engage with you and they're like, Jesus, you wouldn't believe. And obviously you can just, and they just start telling you about their life all of a sudden. Because no one else has given them time to just, I don't know, listen. I think we're all so busy going from place to place, running, almost rushing to death, that we forget to just be, listen, enjoy the company of the people that we're around. Small things that make the big difference to, you know, having your soul sing.
Yeah.
That's a bit deep, but yeah, I think so.
No, but I think rushing to death, I think it's almost like we don't have time to listen. You know, we don't have time to connect that way. But for what reason? Like, where are we rushing to? That is so important. I think that disconnection, we are so connected through social media that we're almost forgetting that there needs to be actual face-to-face contact. And I like your idea about the barista. I think that's, do you know what stood out to me though when you're saying that? You gave me great details about that woman who was in the health check. You were able to tell her she's getting married, she's getting the statue of, like, how many of us, when we deal with service providers of any sort, do we get that level of information about them? You know, like, you knew she's from Monaghan, that might be in the accent, but you knew she get married in a couple of weeks, you know she had a bad week, you know that she's doing this thing that you'd never heard of before. Like, that's a lot of detail from a receptionist. So something happens that it's not just that you're listening, but that willingness to listen on some level tells the other person that it's okay to speak. Because I doubt she tried to have that conversation with a load of previous clients.
Yeah, I think you touched on something there. It's almost how you listen gives permission. It gives the other person an understanding of permission for what is it they can say. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like how you listen as well. It's not, oh hey, how are you getting on? And you're looking at the phone and you're looking around and you're or you mentioned networking there, which a lot of coaches and consultants I'm sure relate to. You're talking to someone and they hear that you're a coach or something, or you're not something that they're looking for. Straight away they're looking over your shoulder. Went to All Ireland Business Summit, not this year, the year before last. The first person I was talking to was like looking over my shoulder and stuff. I was like, here, tell you what, I'll let you go. I was like, I'd have no problem if someone was talking to someone else, but don't pretend, like, just go. And then I met two lovely people that day, and I still talk to them every now and then, because everyone was genuinely curious about each other, and you help each other then. So it's like, yeah, but listening is so important. It's so broad as well. But for example, imagine sitting down to have a chat with somebody, and they send you a message a few hours later to say, thanks for that conversation. I don't know what it was about you, but it's the first time in years that I actually felt heard. Things like that. They're. I think we're almost, to be fair, I think it's almost the way our brains work at times. Someone's saying something, you're taking it in, and you're almost automatically trying to solve problems for them based on your own experience all the time. So you're almost fighting against yourself by listening, because you're almost trying to unwire the way you've been taught or in school. It's like, there's a problem, work on the solution. How many solutions can you come up with for that problem? So I almost think we're wired not to listen.
Yeah.
So it's a very important, such an important skill, and that can benefit you in every single way possible.
Yeah. I really like that. So before we finish, and I'm putting you on the spot now because I didn't tell you about this, but what are the 3 tips you'd give if somebody wants to improve their listening?
If somebody wants to improve their listening, good question. I guess ask yourself, I'd probably text 5 people you trust the most who will give you a very, very honest answer, and maybe just ask them, do you think I'm a good listener? And what do you think I could do to improve my listening?
Oh, wow.
Then you're getting the feedback from the people close to you. Hopefully that'll give you an honest answer. Like a good friend will be like, okay, he wants me to help. I'm not just going to say, oh yeah, you're amazing. Actually, at times, I think you could be a small bit better, because a good friend's going to give you the right information. And then they'll be able to give you information from your friend's perspective and the people you hang out with or talk to the most on where you're at.
Yeah.
From the people that are close to you. So that might be one. That could be a starting point. A second one could be for the next 12 hours or 24 hours. Just have your conversations. Don't be putting pressure on yourself. Just have as you normally would. And, you know, when the day is over, just be like, okay, how good was I at listening now? Was I constantly trying to jump in? Small things. And just, that could be a simple thing that maybe you do it once a week. And you just like, okay, how good was I at listening this week? And I guess if you make, if you can have a friend, if you really, really want to do it, I guess the third tip might be with a friend who would also like to improve their listening. Try and practice each other. Just be like, here, I want to practice my listening, you want to practice your listening. How about we spend 30 minutes, either it's over the phone, or maybe it's a good reason to meet someone you haven't met in a long time that would be also up to do it. Do you want to try practice listening once a month? And just have a conversation where you just talk and you listen about something you're actually interested in, and then just give honest feedback.
Oh, I like it. They're different.
Yeah, I think they're real. Just raise your own awareness through, natural process without putting pressure on yourself. Like, meet yourself where you're at. Like, don't be trying to be the best listener in the world in 10 weeks. Like, we're always constantly working on that. But meet yourself where you're at. You're at step 1. What does that look like? And what does it have to do to get step 2?
Okay. Well, brilliant. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm going to let you go now because I know you're busy. And all the details for Thomas will be in the bio. So there'll be links to your website and to your social media and all of that jazz. And if anyone wants to follow up with you, don't you do a call with somebody before you work with them? Just have a chat and see what they're looking for.
No, absolutely. And I listen to make sure that I listen so intently to make sure that, first of all, I'm the right person for them and I'm what they're looking for. Okay,
brilliant. So they can test you out on your listening skills then. So I'll leave all the details below and they can follow up with you directly. Is that okay?
Super. That's
brilliant.
Amazing.
Thanks
very much, Sheila.
Thanks a million.
You're welcome.